welcome to the next section of Full Stack Conversations. We've got two guests here, Mrinalini from my team and Mohit,
From
you
his
already
team.
know. And we are all from one team only. So we are from the technology team. So let's get this cracking. Today we are talking about decentralized applications. Decentralized applications sounds quite interesting. So Mohit, will you start off with what decentralized applications are? And then Mrinalini can join in why they are relevant. I'll try to put in some thoughts from the legal perspective.
I have a question for you. I'll ask towards the end, okay?
Okay.
Decentralized applications. What are applications without decentralized one? Applications are just computer programs which are meant to do some specific task.
Very nice.
Right. Now, decentralized applications are a different method to run them. Now, how are traditional applications are run? So, one group of developers, one community, one entity, one organization, one company, they build this app, then they release it to the world, and whatever data this app is generating, they have all of this data. So, this entire app, the data, the ecosystem is controlled by one organization, which is very good for the user because they are getting some value out of this application. But it also involves one major failure point, which is all of this is controlled by one company, which becomes a single point of failure. I'm not talking the bad intentions of this company, but what if a hacker hacks into this company and gets all the data? We have heard of this Facebook scam, Cambridge Analytica. This entire last year was like shit for Facebook. Why? Because Facebook had all this data and they were responsible to maintain the security and everything. But when there's money, sometimes you lose your way.
Correct.
Now, decentralized applications are still the applications which serve the same purpose to the end user, but not one company is running these applications. Anybody can say, I'll host a version of this application. And I'm incentivized to host this version because if I serve the end user, I'll get paid in some tokens or some cryptos and some money. Like in some manner, I'll get paid. So decentralized applications are again the computer programs which are app parts, the D parts which are not run on one, which are not run by one company, but anybody can run it. And third, the community is incentivized within itself. So one company is not saying you do this, you do this, you do this. The incentives are built in a manner that the economic incentives are built in a manner that everybody behaves in a certain manner.
Correct.
Which increases the overall value of this ecosystem and the community. So that's dApp.
Well, that's quite interesting that you say that these are dApps. However, I was just wondering that what is the real problem with centralization that all of a sudden, under blockchain technology, we are now talking about decentralization? Or is it that decentralization is a bigger term than blockchain itself?
Definitely, it's a bigger term than blockchain. Blockchain is one of the ways to implement decentralization. The problem is this, and this is something that I have read today itself, the asymmetry between the risk and the rewards. The centralized application is controlled by one company, they get all the rewards. But if they're hacked, who is at the risk? Company's reputation, that is one, but your data.
The user's data.
The risk is with the user, or the rewards are with the company. This asymmetry will eventually make any centralized structure to collapse.
That's very interesting.
So this is a single point of failure with these companies and centralization. So that's why decentralization is like, whoever has the risk has the reward. You control your own data. You control your own private key. If that gets hacked, you are at the risk. So you have the rewards. You have the risk. So now there is the symmetry.
So do you think that, say, users are smart enough to take responsibility of their data? If you look at, say, companies like, say, Facebook. So only because we were not able to secure or digitally secure or digitally put our social life into one platform and then connect my social profile with someone else's social profile so that we can interact. Hence, companies like Facebook came up, and now we are saying that the entire concept of centralization was wrong, and hence decentralization is important.
This is the funny thing about technology. If 10-15 years ago you would have asked me, hey, do you really think everybody would be able to use internet? Because in internet there's ISP, then there's one server hops to another server, then finally reaches to the Facebook server, then you get served the page. And the page, even the web pages, had just text. No photos, no videos, no audios, no games.
Absolutely.
I would say, I don't think so, because this is for the technology people. They write some code and then they do something over there. But now you just pull out your phone, turn on your 4G, and you are there using the internet.
Correct.
The decentralized part of these applications, user will never get to know. For them, they'll be just again pulling out their phones using a
So what you are saying from a
this is just a function of time,
perspective,
yes.
from a user's perspective is that an application or a decentralized application, it does not make a difference to the final user
In the experience.
in the experience.
In the experience.
However, this takes us to a very interesting question, which I posed to Mrinalini, is that what do you think should be the difference in legality and regulation for centralized apps and decentralized apps? Do you think that it will throw up some anomaly in regulations, or it can be regulated in the same manner and mode?
It will obviously be difficult.
So why difficult in what sense, and why do you think it will be difficult? So I think what you mean to say,
If suppose on a dApp we say this is a platform and there are n number of apps on this platform, right?
Yes.
Suppose I'm using this app. Now both the parties to this are getting, suppose this is A, this is B. These both are getting incentivized, right?
correct.
So how come he's saying ki the user will not get to know if this is decentralized or not? Obviously I'm getting
Only in the experience.
No, only in the experience. From that perspective, what he was saying was absolutely right. These are my thoughts. Perhaps Mohit and Mrinalini can throw in their thoughts as well. I feel that the regulatory part of decentralized apps will be very interesting. It's an area which I feel it is still lawless, and it would require some legal regulations to come up. The reason why I say so is this: when you have one single company controlling, accessing, offering all the services of a single app, the government knows that this is the company which is earning out of all the users, and one single company can be then taxed to earn revenues for the government. However, in decentralization, what happens is that instead of one single company, it is now broken up into thousands of people, and those thousands of users might be in different jurisdictions, in different countries of the world. Now, say for example, a decentralized app in India is accessed by certain users in India, and they pay, as you mentioned, through some tokens to decentralized people who are running and sustaining that app, and all these decentralized people are in different countries of the world running their own servers. Now, how does the Indian government ensure taxation compliance for all these smaller people who are running these servers on their own nodes? And there might be cases where these people are not even traceable. Why? Because they are not corporates. Second, there might be operating from jurisdictions where India does not have any tax treaties with those countries. So the taxation will become more and more complex in this case. Do you think that there is any solution to this thing, or this is a big lawless problem that it cannot be solved, or maybe some lawyer from the future would be there to solve this thing?
So maybe Mrinalini will have her thing.
But this definitely has some lawlessness as because this is from some other country, this is from some other country, so I might not have DT double taxation agreements with all the countries.
Obviously, so
one of
that
the
is where the
solutions can
lawlessness
be
is.
if we can get a global law, which is way too difficult, more of a theoretical concept, that we get a global law for the
See,
entire.
global laws, I think people have attempted to create global laws, but global laws for taxation were talked about. But taxation, global laws is a very, I would
Because
say,
because the needs also differ. For a developing nation and for a developed nation, the taxonomy is very different. So we cannot say that we can create a global law. It is more theoretical and not practical. It is not feasible for the government.
So it is also, if you look at it this way, that there are countries in the world which tax incomes at as high as 40%.
40%.
And there are countries in the world which do not tax any income at all, the same income. So when there's a huge anomaly or difference in taxation of 0% to 40%, now how can you even think of making a global law? And in case there is no global law, then the big challenge is that how do you tax it? So this is a very interesting challenge that the governments of the future will face once decentralized applications become mainstream.
Yeah. So when all of these decentralized applications were getting built, the idea was not to take this requirement as one of the core requirements, like by the developers. Developers didn't go out and think, wait. All of this is good, but we should also think of governments how they'll tax.
So I think that is where the role of lawyers step in.
Now,
So,
taxes is one thing. Now, you must have used a lot of applications in your life, right?
Correct.
And you would have faced some bugs in the applications.
Correct.
When they make mistake, it's okay. The company
Correct.
will fix it.
Correct.
Now here's the thing. What if, because now dApps involve incentives, they involve money.
Correct.
What if they make a mistake?
Correct.
Who will you reach out to?
Wow.
Who is at the loss?
The user, the ultimate user is
Because the risk is with them,
Absolutely.
reward with
Reward
them.
is
But
also with them.
this is like
So
I'm not
this
talking
actually-
of, I'm not talking of like
So this
single point of
actually-
failure is still there, you know. Because
interesting.
dApps can also make mistakes.
Wow.
And who will
So
you reach
this
out to
actually
then?
throws up another anomaly from a legal perspective, that in case you have 100 people running a decentralized application
Mm-hmm.
or offering support to a decentralized application, and 2 people out of those 100 make a mistake. Maybe the servers got hacked, maybe there's a virus that got seeped in through those 2 nodes. Now what happens is that it spoils the entire thing, and the user, the ultimate user, does not even have recourse in law to actually apply for a damage that has been incurred to him because the 2 nodes which actually faced virus or were vulnerable to attacks.
Yeah, so this is one of the scenarios. Another scenario is there's no virus. The code that was written works 99.9% of the times, but there is one case which is very special edge case. For example, if you access this application from this latitude and longitude at this time with this particular parameters, only then it fails.
Wow.
Because
So that's a theoretical possibility
Yeah,
that
because
might
a mathematical formula within the application divides, subtract 2 number and then divides with that.
Correct.
And division by 0, it throws up an error and your money is gone.
Absolutely.
It's a very rare of the scenarios.
But
now,
that can show-
now that loss was not done by the developer, but was not done by the node, but was done by the code. How will you sue the code?
So that's a very interesting. Again, it throws up another anomaly that it's the rule of the code becoming bigger than the rule of the law.
Yeah.
So I think the rule of law has to now catch up with the rule of code.
Maybe if everybody is like so tech savvy that they can audit the code that they're interacting with, because everything is open source. That is like one theoretical foolproof solution. But that is not going to happen, because even if days like this, I'm not aware of so many sections. Maybe I'm doing some crime over here. I'm not even aware of it. It's unlikely to happen, but that is the only foolproof solution. But then I say these are the pros and cons that you deal with.
So it's not that decentralization is solving many things. It's surely solving problems like
It's also
single
one
point of
introduces 3.
Yes, so it's like it solves the bigger problem of single point of failure, but it creates more problems of maybe cyber security laws might require an upgrade because of decentralized applications. So that's one service area that we should get into.
So here's he ends as a lawyer and starts as a businessman. This is the point.
So I think it's not about just changing from centralization to decentralization. The point is that it should end in more goods and lesser mistakes or wrongs. So things like solving problems of single point of failure and creating 3 more new problems is not something that we should look at.
It's not a good deal, no?
It's not a good deal. But
I remember this poem. With engineers, there is this poem. I had 9 bugs. I fixed one. I have 11 bugs. I have 11 bugs. So this is a very similar scenario. But again, I would say.
So this is very similar to the legal problem as well. We make one law, and that law then contradicts the other 3 laws. Now you make 3 more laws, and then they contradict 5 more laws.
Not so different after all, no?
So that's how.
But I think all of these problems are like interesting problems to have, good problems to have and solve.
Correct.
But ultimately, if you see what is the core problem that is getting solved, I think that is worth having these smaller problems.
So I think it's only time that will tell whether the problem of centralization or the single point of failure is bigger as compared to, say, a bug seeping in.
Yeah.
So say, for example, when you talk about, say, solving the problem of single point of failure for banks, whereas the data becomes vulnerable because it is decentralized and now private servers are actually hosting a bank's website, for instance. Now we would be very vulnerable with our money where the bank server are then hosted by multiple decentralized people, and then it has more risks of being say hacked or attacked by a virus as compared to a central server.
Perfect.
So it's like choosing between devil and the deep sea. So
perfect. But you know what? I don't have all the answers, but usually when I hear people comparing, say, this is centralized Facebook, and this is how decentralized Facebook will look like. Decentralized Facebook will not at all look like centralized Facebook. So a decentralized bank will not even look like a bank. It will look like Bitcoin.
Wow.
Bitcoin is a decentralized bank. You don't need a bank. You need a banking service to allow you to
well, the government does not treat bitcoins as
I know.
legal
So
tender,
I'm just saying a
I think
decentralized
that's-
version of something centralized might be entirely different. So
Absolutely.
all
So
of
I
these
think-
problems are there.
I think what I feel is that it's not the right moment to actually compare centralization versus decentralization. When I see decentralization, I see that you are starting something afresh. It is not that you are building on the problems of centralization. You're starting something afresh.
Absolutely.
And when you start something afresh, it will have its own set of problems, an own set of challenges, an own set of solutions.
Absolutely.
So based on those newer things, so as you rightly pointed out, the decentralized version of Facebook or LinkedIn will not look like the centralized version of Facebook or LinkedIn.
Absolutely. May I give you one more example?
Sure.
When internet happened, everybody was trying to build everything.com.
Correct.
But what were the real use cases of internet? Your WhatsApp, your communication, which was not there before internet.
Absolutely.
So WhatsApp was not the internet version of something else.
Correct.
It was a new use case. E-commerce.
Absolutely.
E-commerce was not there.
So perhaps-
People thought this is Microsoft Word and this is how the decentralized version will look like. Google Doc came in, but that was like just another use case.
Absolutely.
But the real use case which developed the internet was communication, e-commerce.
Correct.
These were the use cases which were never existing before internet happened.
Correct.
So even the blockchain thing, decentralized thing, will not see decentralized version of something else. We'll
Correct.
see entirely new use
Absolutely
cases
new.
coming up.
So I think what I think of decentralization is that it's creating a base, a structure on which newer applications will be built, and those newer applications may or may not be comparable with the existing applications which
Yes.
are built on centralized servers.
Yes.
So things will be as we know that perhaps we were talking about this thing, a comparison between say a centralized browser like Chrome versus a decentralized browser like Brave. So a Brave browser actually eliminates all the middlemen and directly incentivizes people who are developing, sustaining the Brave browser and directly interacting with the user. So the user gets a better experience in terms of say automatic ad blocker,
They don't get so many pop-ups.
and they don't get annoying pop-ups as you get in Google Chrome,
Yeah.
and the user experience is enhanced.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it's quite good. And on the other hand, all the middlemen who were sort of advertising agencies who were making big money of advertisement revenues through Google Chrome are now less incentivized, and people who are actually developing some tools
Yeah.
on the Brave browser get directly incentivized. So that's a very brilliant use case of decentralized technology.
Absolutely. So these will be the use cases which nobody would have thought of. It will not be like this is decentralized version of the supply chain on blockchain. It will not be like this. It will be like entirely new use cases. What I look at blockchain and decentralization is not as a ledger, but I look at it as a mechanism to get a group of human beings, irrational human beings, behave in a certain way.
Wow.
Because irrational
That's a
human beings are
brilliant
like so random, but then you put the proper incentives, economic incentives, which are driven by the code itself, and then every human being will behave a
So
certain
I think
manner.
you've got to understand again from a legal perspective that what is that line that you've got to draw, that up till this point we can trust the code and beyond this point we need the interaction of a human, because lots of lawyers are these days worried that are our jobs taken away or expected to be taken away by codes. So I feel that basic level jobs, which are primarily jobs which are repeatable in nature, jobs which can be converted into a process, and jobs which require less intellectual knowledge would still be replaced by code. So reputable jobs can still be replaced by codes. However, where it involves an intellect of human to interpret the language or interpret the legal terms and conditions or rules and roles and responsibilities between two individuals, that is where the lawyers would still be needed.
Subjectivity, of course.
So where there is subjectivity, as you rightly pointed out, subjectivity in law, where things, and generally most of the law is actually subjective only. We discuss in courts.
Of course.
We discuss in courts one word and or can make the huge difference.
Of course.
So a thing like and is very non-subjective in technology language, but in law it can have multiple interpretations. So that throws a great anomaly and great challenge to the judiciary system of the country
Yeah.
to actually come up with something, some regulations in this
Of
front.
course. And being a techie, I totally appreciate this, but but what I'm saying is this: like even your consciousness or subjectivity is coming from something which is not so subjective. Your neurons and your biochemicals within your head, these can be quantified.
AI,
Wow.
biochemical.
And these,
So now
and
this
when
is
these
very
can be
interesting.
quantified,
Now
and
this
now
is-
when these can be quantified, these can be automated.
Now these are very, very interesting conversation. Now you got to know this. A techie and a lawyer talking about biology. Now, this is good fun.
I think we should wrap this episode now.
So I think let's just take the turn of a techie and a lawyer talking about biology in the next
Next thing.
episode. And this was very, very good. Thank you, Mrinalini. Thank you,
Finally,
Mohit.
this was the entire full stack conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye.
much.